This is a super quick video just reminding you how to do diamond problems. So remember, when we have a quadratic, we have ax squared plus bx plus c. The terms we're going to need are the a, the b, and the c. And we remember on the diamond problem, we have a times c here, and then b goes down here. And so if I have, for example, x squared plus 6x plus 8, then our diamond has 1 times 8 up here, and then the 6 goes down here. And we are looking for two numbers that multiply to be 8 and add to 6. And you can either think of those, or you can make a factor tower, and you say, well, 1 times 8 is 8, 2 times 4, is 8, and then 3, no, that doesn't go into it, and then 4, we can stop because we already have a 4 in our list, and we see, do any of these add up to 6? Well, 2 and 4 add up to 6, so those two numbers go there, and so then we just say x plus 2, and that 2 came from over here, times x plus 4, and that 4 came from over here, and so that is x squared plus 6x plus 8 factored. So let's look at another problem. So if I look at, for example, x squared minus 8x plus 16, we make our diamond. We know they need to multiply to 1 times 16 is 16, and they need to add to negative 8. So I make my factor tower of 16, and I know that that's 1 times 16, 2 times 8, 3 doesn't go into it, but 4 times 4 is 16. And so we can stop there, and we need two numbers that are going to multiply to a positive, and we need to get a sum of a negative. So that means that it's going to be two negatives, because two negatives give us a positive when we multiply, and then we can get a sum that is a negative. So we know both of those will be negative, and which of these add up to 8? Well, 4 and 4, so this is just minus 4 and minus 4, so this factors to x minus 4 times x minus 4, or if you prefer, x minus 4 quantity squared. And that should look like one of the binomials that we've done before. So now let's look at another example. What if I have x squared minus x minus 20? We set up our diamond problem. And so they multiply to 1 times negative 20 is negative 20, and then negative 1 here, because remember there's a hidden 1. And so we do our factor tower for 20, and that's 1 times 20, 2 times 10, 3 doesn't go into it, but 4 times 5 is 20. 5 we can stop because we already have a 5 in there, and we know that there's going to be one negative and one positive because the product needs to be negative. So we're looking for a difference of 1. So we know there's going to be a positive and a negative. We want a difference of 1, and the 4 and 5 has a difference of 1, and since the sum is going to be negative, we need to take the bigger one to be the negative number, and then the 4 goes here, and so then we just have x plus 4 times x minus 5. And then we have another example here. This time we have a coefficient in front of the x squared, and I want to stress this enough. I talked about this in class, but whenever you can factor out a common factor, you want to do that. So I'm going to just put a 5 off to the side here so I don't forget it, and I factor that out, and I get x squared minus 7x plus 12. And now I do my diamond problem for that. I have my 12 here, my negative 7. So this is negative, so I know both of them are going to be negative because negative times negative is a positive. And I don't even need to do my factor tower because immediately I think 7 and I think 12, 3 times 4, so that's going to be a 3 and that's going to be a 4, or you could have put the 4 there and the 3 there, it doesn't matter. And so then this is 5, don't forget the 5, times x minus 3 times x minus 4. And so we have that. So whenever we can factor out any common factor, it's going to make your life much easier and sometimes going to make it possible to do that. Okay, let's look at another example that's going to be a little bit harder here. And so we need to use what's called grouping on this one. So we're going to have 15x squared minus 18x minus 24. And we're going to factor out a 3 out of this, but you notice when we factor out a 3, we still have a 5 there. And whenever we see a coefficient other than 1 in front of the x squared, we have to use what's called grouping. So all I did was factored out the 3 there, and then I'm going to do my diamond problem. And 5 times negative 8 is negative 40. And then the negative 6 still comes down here, because remember it's a times c. A times c, 5 times negative 8 is negative 40. And then we look at 40, and 40 is 1 times 40. And we want, by the way, we want a negative and a positive. So we're looking for a difference of 6. We're looking for a difference of 6. 2 times 20, that's a difference of 18. And 4 times 10, well, that is a difference of 6. We want this to be a negative, so we're going to take the bigger one, put that next to the negative. And then we have a 4 here. And so now we have 3 times, and I'm going to put a double parenthesis here, 5x squared minus 10x. And the way I did this, I took this first part, the 5x squared, I put it here. This is grouping. And then minus 10x. And what I'm doing is I'm splitting up this negative 6x into the negative 10x plus 4x. And then I need to say plus between these two, and then my 4x, so that way these add up together to be negative 6x, and then the minus 8. And if you did this correctly, everything inside the big parentheses will add up to be this. So this is how we group it. We have 5x squared minus 10x, 5x squared minus 10x. We're splitting that into two pieces, 4x from here, and then the minus 8. And now we're going to factor out common factors out of these. If you remember, we did a lot of common factor last week. So this has a common factor of 5x, and so this gives me x minus 2. So this multiplied gives us that, plus, and then over here we can factor out a 4, and I factor out a 4, I get x minus 2. And if we did this correctly, this term factored out here and this term factored out here will be exactly the same. And then what you have is 3 times 5x plus 4. So I'm, in essence, factoring out that 5x plus 4 times the x minus 2. Things where students go wrong is they forget to do a plus in here. They forget to factor out the common factor. But then this, all multiplied together, will give us our original numbers up there. Let's look at one final problem. So here's our final problem here. And so I'm going to say, how about 10x squared plus 42x minus 40. And I'm going to factor out a 2. Now, I usually don't use the double parentheses. I did that on our example just to make it a little easier to understand, but I'm going to remember that I'm factoring out a 2. So that's 5x squared plus 21x minus 20. And so then we have our diamond problem, and this gives us negative 100, because 5 times negative 20 is negative 100, and then 21 down here. So we know that there's going to be a negative and a positive, and the bigger factor is going to be over here on the plus. And so then I look at this, And you can do it with factor towers or whatever, but I'm going to tell you that 4 times 25 is 100, and those have a difference of 21. So now that I've factored that out, I need to group it. So I remember my 2 over here, so I don't forget that I factored out a 2, and I get 5x squared. And then instead of 21x, I'm going to split it into minus 4x plus 25x. So minus 4x, and then plus, and then open parenthesis, the 25x, and then the minus 20. So if you didn't understand where I got those, watch this video again until it makes sense. So then 2 times, well, what can we factor out of this? Well, out of this, we can factor out an x, and so that gives me 5x minus 4. And from this, we can factor out a 5, so that's going to be plus 5 times 5x minus 4. And notice these two are the same, which is great. So your final answer is 2 times x plus 5, x plus 5, and then that common factor of 5x minus 4. Now, if we had split this up, that's the end of the problem, but if we had split this up differently, let's say we had put the plus 25 over on this side, then we still would have got the same answer. So this is kind of like just extra information. Don't worry about which one goes on which side, so long as the positive is with the positive and the negative is with the negative. So if we had ended up with a chart that looked like this, that would have been okay, because we would have split this into 2 times 5x squared plus 25 plus negative 4x minus 20. And this we would have factored out, I'm sorry, there should be an x in there. This we would have factored out a 5x, so this is 2 times 5x, and then open parenthesis, x plus 5. And this we can factor out a minus 4, and this is still x plus 5, because you want that coefficient to be positive. And notice this gives us same thing we had before of 2 times 5x minus 4 times x plus 5, which is the same answer we had up here. So it doesn't matter what order we did those in. And that is it.